One of the first things you will need to do after setting up a customer with access to BLAS is import their contact list. This is something that your customer can do or you can do for them. In this video, we are going to look at how to prepare contact data for importing, and then we'll briefly walk through the import process. You'll need to get your customer list as some sort of spreadsheet. Wherever your customer has their contact data stored today, whether that's a different plan room or a CRM database or even just an Outlook address book, they just need to save or export that to a spreadsheet and you can take it from there. The spreadsheet I have here is all fake data that we generated for this video. None of the names or contact information you see here is real. You can see this is a fairly simple, clean, organized spreadsheet. For starters, it has a header row at the top. Pretty basic, but it's important. Make sure you have a header row to label each of the columns in the spreadsheet. The ordering of these columns really doesn't matter. Right now we have first name as the first column, but it could just as easily be the last column. Nor do the actual column labels matter. The address column could be called street address, for example. There are no rules so long as you have some sort of label. There are two basic requirements for a contact record to be valid for import. The first is that the contact record have something to identify them, that is, a first and last name or a company name. The second is some way to reach them with BLAS communication, that is, an email address or a fax number. Contacts that don't meet these two basic requirements will be skipped later in the import process. You do want to make sure that the contact data is broken up. This is especially important for the address. Make sure that the street address, city, state, and zip are all in separate columns. All of the data for each contact should just be on one row. Make sure you don't have, for example, the name and company on one line and the address below it on a separate line. That would cause issues during import. Instead, it should be like you see here, everything on one row. So far, this is all pretty straightforward. Let's look at trades and groups next. Ideally, you want the trades to be listed as clean numeric CSI codes. That would be 5 or 6 digits depending on the CSI standard being used by your customer. In this case, I'm using the 16 division standard, so I have 5-digit codes. This will make it very easy for the importer to properly link up each contact to the appropriate trades. Even though I have a CSI description here, I'm not going to use this information for importing. Any slight difference in the naming or the spelling or even the spacing of a trade description means it might not match up properly. It's much better to use the numeric code. Also, I only have one CSI code listed here for each contact. However, you can easily have multiple codes separated by a comma or a semicolon. Finally, we have our groups. Groups allow your customer to categorize contacts for any number of purposes. It's common to have a group for union subcontractors, maybe MBE certification, or geographic locations like downtown or upstate. You get the idea. It's very flexible. These groups might already exist in the plan room database, but they don't have to. The importer will create these on the fly if needed. We are ready to save this and get it imported. Let's go to File, and we'll need to pick Save As so that we can specify the file format. I'm just going to save this to my desktop. Now this is where we need to go down to the Save As type and ensure we are saving this as a basic, comma delimited, or CSV file. Excel will warn you when you save to CSV. Just click Yes. This is definitely what we want. Now I can pull up the plan room and log in here as Ed Carter. I'll click on the My Dashboard button and then the My Contacts tab. And from here, we'll click on More Actions, Import Contacts to get started. The first step is to select our CSV file. Notice the link here to a quick reference guide, which covers some of the best practices for organizing contact data, essentially what we just talked through. Let's go ahead and select our CSV file on the desktop, and we'll click Next. The importer is first going to examine the header row in our spreadsheet and display each column label on the left side. It also shows the first few records in each column, And on the right, it will ask us to select the field in the Planium database that should be mapped to this spreadsheet column. In this case, it's pretty simple. We pick first name. You can see the importer was able to figure these out automatically. It's pretty smart if your column headings use common terms like name, company, address, etc. If there is a column heading that the importer does not automatically recognize, you would just need to pick the field from the dropdown on the right to tell it what it is. The country field didn't match anything, but that's fine. We really don't need that anyway. If we wanted to, we could stick it in the notes field, but I'm not going to worry about that. Email, phone, and fax all look good. And yes, we want to map our numeric CSI codes to the database trades field and leave the CSI description untouched. Groups are all set, and so we can click continue. Now we'll get a preview of what our import will look like before we finish up. There were no duplicates found, excellent. No errors were found, also good. If there had been any errors, say contacts that didn't have the necessary data to import, you would be able to download those errors as a separate spreadsheet. This makes it easy to go fix those errors, maybe figure out what the email address is if it was missing, and then do a follow-up import later on. You can attach trades or groups to this entire import list if you'd like. Maybe we want a group just for today's import if they came from a specific source, for example. If we scroll down, we'll see the data being imported, all matched up to our database fields. On the right, we'll see the list of trades. This means they were recognized in the Planium database and will be properly linked up. We also see that the groups are all set. If there were any errors at all, say an email address was formatted incorrectly and not valid, they would appear here on the far right. There are two different kinds of errors. You can have errors with one piece of data, like the email address, and yet still have a valid contact that gets imported without an email address, as long as there's still a fax number, for example. Or you can have an error that means the contact cannot be imported at all, say if there's no valid name or company. Without at least these basic required fields, the contact would be skipped during the import process. That's it. Let's click import, and this will take just a minute. And we're done. Excellent. We just imported 1,800 contacts that are all ready to go.